Hello and welcome to Planet Pulse on Firstpost. The Earth is constantly changing, and in recent years, for the worse. Summers are getting hotter and winters harsher. Rising sea levels, floods, drought, wildfires, and torrential rain have been disrupting lives across continents. The fight against climate change is needed now more than ever. On this show, we bring you all the top stories on the climate crisis, its causes, its brutal effects, and the warriors helping to fight the menace. Coffee, one of the world's most consumed beverages, is facing an existential threat due to climate change. From the volcanic highlands of Kenya to the vast plantations in Brazil, changing weather patterns, erratic rainfall, and rising temperatures are disrupting coffee production across the globe. What was once a reliable crop is becoming increasingly vulnerable as farmers struggle to adapt to the shifting climate. With coffee crops already suffering from diseases, water shortages, and unpredictable weather, the future of this beloved drink is uncertain. Here's our report.
Few things unite the world like a love for coffee. That fragrant cup of joe. The morning lifeline for billions. It's more than just a beverage, it's a way of life. But behind every rich aromatic sip lies a sobering truth. Climate change is threatening the future of coffee as we know it. From the volcanic highlands of Kenya to the rainforests of Brazil, the ripple effects of a warming planet are wreaking havoc on coffee farmers, their livelihoods, and the supply chain that fuels our caffeine cravings. Take the lush hills of Komothai in central Kenya, for instance. Here, farmers dedicate their lives to cultivating Kenya AA coffee beans, prized globally for their full-bodied flavor and fruity aroma. It's back-breaking work, requiring constant pruning, weeding, and fertilizing. Coffee trees are a long-term investment, taking 4 years to bear fruit, and even then, yields are never guaranteed. The beans, lovingly nicknamed black gold by locals, are shipped to high-end European cafes where a single cup can fetch $4. However, the reality is far less glamorous. Despite the beans' global fame, coffee laborers in Kenya earn as little as $2.30 a day. Workers who harvest coffee cherries on Komothai's steep hillsides often make even less, about $1.40 a day. For families where every penny counts, the struggle is constant. But economic disparity is only part of the problem. The real threat comes from the erratic weather and rising temperatures brought on by climate change. Coffee plants are notoriously finicky, requiring specific conditions to thrive: mild, humid temperatures, consistent rainfall, and disease-free soil. These conditions are becoming increasingly rare. Climate change is our biggest challenge, says John Murigi, chairman of the Komothai Coffee Society, which represents 8,000 farmers in the region. As temperatures rise, yields are dropping, and pests like leaf miners and diseases such as coffee berry disease are thriving. These afflictions can devastate up to 80% of a harvest, forcing farmers to rely on pesticides and herbicides that degrade soil quality over time. Water scarcity is another mounting crisis. Producing a single cup of coffee requires 140 liters of water, a staggering amount for regions already grappling with drought and erratic rainfall. In Kiambu County, river levels are plummeting, and farmers are increasingly reliant on scarce water sources to sustain their crops. Komothai's struggles are mirrored across the globe. In Brazil, droughts have decimated Arabica bean harvests, while Vietnam's Robusta reserves have been battered by severe weather. The Coffee Belt, tropical regions at altitudes of 1,000 to 2,000 meters where coffee is grown, is shrinking as the planet warms. This climate crisis isn't just impacting farmers, it's hitting your wallet too. Global coffee prices recently reached a 47-year high due to supply shortages, with climate-induced crop failures being a key driver. Even large coffee companies like Nestle are raising prices and shrinking package sizes to manage costs. Some farmers are fighting back. They are experimenting with climate adaptation strategies like planting shade trees to protect crops from extreme temperatures. But these efforts are often piecemeal and fail to address the systemic challenges facing coffee growers. For the farmers in Kenya, the future feels bleak. No parent wants their child to grow up farming coffee. Without urgent action to address the dual challenges of climate change and economic inequality, the global coffee industry is at risk of collapse. So, the next time you sip your latte, take a moment to consider the journey of those beans. Climate change isn't just an abstract issue, it's coming for your coffee. And if we don't act fast enough to reduce emissions, support sustainable farming, and build resilience in vulnerable regions, that morning cup could soon become a luxury few can afford. Coffee may be your wake-up call, but perhaps it's also time for all of us to wake up to the brewing climate crisis.
Our next story is about the dying Dead Sea. Once a breathtaking oasis attracting visitors from around the world, the Dead Sea is now a shadow of its former self. Its famous buoyant waters are vanishing at an alarming rate, leaving behind sinkholes, abandoned beaches, and a landscape that looks more like a disaster zone than a natural wonder. Years of industrial exploitation, water diversion, and climate change have accelerated its decline. But despite widespread concern, little is being done to stop it. Here's our report.
The Dead Sea, a shimmering blue marvel nestled between Israel, Jordan, and Palestine, has long been a place of legend and mystery. Its hypersaline waters, nearly 10 times saltier than the ocean, allow visitors to float effortlessly, making it one of the most unique natural wonders on Earth. Rich in minerals, its mud has been sought after for centuries for its supposed healing properties. Surrounded by golden-hued cliffs and the barren beauty of the Judean desert, the Dead Sea is a sight to behold. But beneath this breathtaking landscape lies a stark reality. The sea is vanishing, and no one can agree on how to stop it. Once Israel's flagship beach, En-Gedi, used to draw tourists from around the world eager to experience the sea's therapeutic waters. Today, it stands abandoned. A landscape of desolation where a rustling pier, a crumbling lifeguard tower, and twisted umbrellas serve as eerie reminders of what once was. The shoreline has receded so dramatically that accessing the water has become a challenge. Even more alarming are the sinkholes. They are massive craters that open unpredictably, swallowing parts of the landscape and forcing authorities to close the beach entirely 5 years ago. This isn't a sudden catastrophe. The Dead Sea has been in decline for decades. What was once a thriving natural attraction is now an ecological disaster, worsened by human intervention and climate change. The Dead Sea's troubles began with aggressive water diversion. The Jordan River, its main source, has been siphoned off for agriculture and drinking water. Various tributaries, originating in Lebanon and Syria, have also been redirected, leaving the sea to depend on the little water that still reaches it. Additionally, large-scale mineral extraction operations have exacerbated the crisis. Factories mine the Dead Sea for potash, bromine, sodium chloride, and magnesium, depleting its waters even further.
What we can see here is just a pier that stood here about 40 years ago, and see where the pier is and where the water level is. So we are in actually a disaster zone.
Decades of industrial use and water mismanagement have caused the sea to shrink at an alarming rate, over 1 meter per year since the 1960s. Efforts to address the crisis have been sporadic. Israel and Jordan have previously signed agreements to manage water resources, but the worsening geopolitical situation has stalled meaningful progress.
It doesn't make economic or environmental sense to desalinate water and bring them directly to the Dead Sea, because then it's a waste of drinking water, and the region needs desperately more drinking water, more water for agriculture, and that's why we need to combine a desalination plant together with a Dead Sea Canal.
One thing is clear: no country can tackle this crisis alone. We can't do it alone. It must be a joint effort, Kani insists, emphasizing that any viable solution must involve cooperation with Jordan. But in a region plagued by deep-seated conflicts, environmental collaboration remains elusive. For locals, the Dead Sea's transformation is both surreal and heartbreaking. Many people have fond memories of its once thriving beaches.
Just earlier on the way here, I told Noah that there was a place here that my parents used to go to. It was like their beach on the Dead Sea. And nowadays you pass by there, and it looks like, I don't know, like some ship sank. It's hallucinatory, the destruction caused by this thing, the drying up of the sea.
The Dead Sea's fate hangs in the balance. Without urgent intervention and unprecedented cooperation, one of the world's most iconic natural wonders could disappear within decades. What was once a symbol of resilience and beauty is now a stark reminder of how human activity and political strife can reshape nature, sometimes beyond repair.
Our planet is reeling under the impact of climate change. Glaciers are melting at an alarming rate. Landscapes are being drastically altered. And this is impacting the lives of migrating cranes. These majestic birds usually fly from Scandinavia to warmer places to escape the harsh winters. But global warming has caused a significant shift in their migration route. France's Lac de Dere, which was once a stopover, has become a destination for these migrating cranes. And though the change in migration route of these cranes may seem harmless, it comes with its own challenges and threats. Our final report brings you the details.
For a long time, France's Lac de Dere was just a fleeting glimpse for hundreds of thousands of migrating cranes. It was a waypoint on their long journey south in search of sunshine and food during winters. But now, this French reservoir is playing a new role in their lives. Climate change has transformed this French lake into a winter haven for these migrating cranes. Each year, these majestic birds traditionally journeyed from Scandinavia to the sun-drenched lands of Spain and North Africa to escape harsh Scandinavian winters. But as the planet continues to warm up at an unprecedented rate, their travel plans are changing. Now, tens of thousands of these migrating cranes spend Europe's coldest months around Lac de Dere. And each year, the number of these majestic birds migrating to this French reservoir is increasing.
The cranes are opportunistic birds, in the same way that we are, meaning that at a given moment, we get as close as we can at a given moment. They said to themselves, here, we've created a hotel for them, with the creation of the Lac du derivative. All around, we've modified the agricultural landscape by introducing corn and other cereal crops. So we created a restaurant for them. So at some point, the cranes said to themselves, well, I don't need to travel another 1,000 or 2,000 kilometers, since it suits me fine here. So from the 80s onwards, we had the first cases of wintering, meaning that the cranes ended their migration route here.
Lac de Dere was created in the 1970s to control flooding on the Seine River. Earlier, during winters, the lake was too cold to be used as a shelter by migrating cranes. And this includes both the common cranes and the sandhill cranes. However, global warming has drastically altered the landscape. In recent decades, the rising temperatures, which are often attributed to unbridled human activity, have transformed Lac d'Uder. The French lake's once frozen islets are now a perfect winter habitat for these majestic birds, and the surrounding fields offer a reliable food source. This French reservoir has become an unintended humid zone for the cranes on their migration route. Now, these birds don't have to travel far in search of shelter, food, and sunshine. Even though most cranes still travel to the Mediterranean for sunshine, the League for the Protection of Birds estimates that up to 30,000 cranes now spend winter around Lac d'Uder. This number has increased tenfold over the past decade.
When we started counting the Lac d'Uder population, which crosses France, the migration corridor there, we were at 40,000, and today we're at around 400,000. So we've multiplied the crane population by 10. This increase is due to the fact that, first of all, the cranes have been classified. They are now classified. They have been protected. I'm sorry, they are now a protected species.
These majestic cranes have become a tourist attraction, drawing visitors from far and wide. But their growing numbers have also created challenges for the local people. As per the local farmers, these migrating cranes eat the seeds, tear up the wheat with their feet, and make a lot of noise while landing, which disrupts the local life. Experts also suggest that migrating birds play a key role in spreading bird flu.
Even though they have 3 fingers and walk, relatively speaking, they're not very heavy birds, weighing between 4 and 6 kilos. The problem is that they trample and then peck, so they'll damage the seedlings and inevitably remove some of the grain that's been put there by the farmer. So that's why we say that seedlings are impacted from time to time.
The locals try their best to scare off these cranes by putting old cars in fields, or by installing a scare cannon which makes noises, or even by putting up windsurf boards. However, the cranes soon get used to it, rendering all these tactics pointless. It's indeed a complex situation. We need to protect these magnificent birds from the devastating impact of climate change, but the concerns of the local farmers cannot simply be ignored. The story of Lac d'Uder is a story of adaptation and of unintended consequences. It's a story of the delicate balance between nature and human activity in our ever-changing world. It's a story that reminds us of the far-reaching impact of climate change and the challenges we face in finding solutions that work for both the wildlife and humans.
And that's it on Planet Pulse for today. We will see you again next week at the same time. Thank you for watching. Stay tuned to Firstpost.
We're calling the show Vantage. We hope you like what we put together for you. Touted as the minimum defense from that video. India's neighbors were the first to send the special edition of Vantage live from the White House throughout this week. Yes, Hindu Mandir in we're on our way to Tel Aviv. Measure, but it's also the perfect way to drive.
I don't think that
Prime Minister of Bhutan, Sherin Tagwe. Welcome to
60% of the world's
office. Prime Minister Modi. Divyan.
We were actually
How are you doing? How do you like? It's been 1 year since that meeting. Iron bars separate you from the outside. Out the vote effort. Trump had, it says, and at $4.3 trillion. 4.3 300 billion by 2030. That's what we need to tackle climate change.